What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It's time to continue my 2023 schedule preview and projected records for the 2023 college football season, and we continue them with the Baylor Bears. Here was a schedule last year for the Baylor Bears. The overall record for this team going 6-7 overall in 2022, 6-6 in the regular season. So kind of an up and down year for this Baylor team. You look at who they played in the non-conference. They played Albany, BYU, Texas State. So they almost played every single Big 12 team on that schedule last year. Of course, with the newcomers coming in with BYU, they will play them. They won't play them this year, but they did play them last year in the non-conference. Ended up losing that one on the road. And then they lost to Oklahoma State and West Virginia. And, West Virginia was a game they probably could have won. And that TCU game, what a finish of that game was from last year. So, like I said, a kind of an up and down year for this Baylor team. They had a really tough stretch there in the month of November, playing, almost the top four teams in the Big 12 from last year. But looking at this Baylor team, what would they look like in 2023? How good will they be heading into the season? Let's now look at the 2023 schedule. Here is that schedule for the Baylor Bears, and you look at who they'll play in the non-conference this year. They'll play Texas State once again. This one will be a home game for them. Then they'll play Utah out of the Pac-12. Going to be an interesting non-conference game there on September the 9th. And then they'll play LIU here on September the 16th. So not tough of a non-conference schedule than it, was probably last year. Of course, Utah will be their toughest one there. The good news is they get that game at home. And we know they're going to be playing every single Big 12 team on this schedule. So let's go game by game now for this Baylor team. So we'll start this season off with their three non-conference games. They'll kick off the season on September the 2nd with Texas State. Then they'll play Utah and then LIU. So that Utah game going to be pretty interesting. A lot of production coming back for this Utah team. Probably perhaps a playoff contender. You never know. Cam Rising also coming back. But the good news is Baylor gets this one at home. And then they'll play Texas after that on September the 23rd, so you get this one at home. So they'll have 4 straight home games to kick off the month of September. And then they'll play on the road at UCF, one of the newcomers in the Big 12 this year. That will be on September the 30th. Then they'll play Texas Tech here on October the 7th. They'll get a bye week here before playing Cincinnati on the road on October the 21st. They'll get a bye week after that Texas Tech game. And that's a pretty good spot for a bye week. To go to play on the road at Cincinnati, that will be a tough one there. Of course, that's a newcomer in the Big 12. And then they'll play Iowa State here on October the 28th. Then they'll play Houston, another one of those newcomers in the Big 12 once again. This one will be on November the 4th. And they'll play back-to-back road games here with Kansas State and TCU. These are tough back-to-back road games here for Baylor. I think this is probably their toughest stretch here on the schedule. It's probably the November schedule from Houston to Kansas State and, TCU. The good news is they get Texas at home. That's the good news. They don't have to play them on the road. And they also have to play Utah at home. But you have to play Kansas State and TCU both on the road. Those will be really tough games there for Baylor heading into this season. And then Baylor will end things out here with West Virginia here on November the 25th. So the schedule is really not all too bad for Baylor, but it's really going to be hard to project this Baylor team like it is almost every year. We don't know how good this team will be. They were up and down last year. Could they really turn things around this year and probably win 7, 8, or 9 games this year? Let's get to the projection now for this Baylor team. And real quick, though, they will play those 3 newcomers in the Big 12 this year with UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston. They will play the 3 newcomers in the Big 12. So let's now get to the projection here for this Baylor team. This is the scale I use for my projections if it's a 1% game. These are games where Baylor has no chance of winning in. 20% games, these will be games where Baylor's going to be about a couple touchdowns of underdogs by double digits. 40% games in the yellow, there'll be about a touchdown of an underdog and also a heavy underdog. 50-50 games, these will stay in the white, games where they can go either way. 60% games, they'll be at least favored by a touchdown. About 80% as well in the blue. They'll be about a favor a couple touchdowns. They'll be favored by double digits. And the 90% games, these are the easy wins for Baylor. That's what we always start with. We're going to start with the easy wins for Baylor like we do with all the other projections. I think you got 2 easy wins here on the schedule for Baylor pretty easily. I think they'll take care of business in both of these games. You got Texas State and LIU. I think they have no business to lose both of these games here in the month of September. And Texas State, they played them last year, easily beat them, and also they will play LIU this time. So I think both of these games, Baylor just has no chance, to lose these games, and also they have no business to lose both of these games at home. Unless something happens, you never know about, some of these teams that could just come out of nowhere and beat some of these Power 5 teams. I don't have any blue games for Baylor, but I do have some purple games on this schedule. So let's go to the purple games now. These are games where Baylor's going to be favored by at least a touchdown. And I think you got two of those on the schedule, Iowa State and West Virginia. Two teams that weren't good last year in the Big 12, but I think they'll be better this year. And based off of where Baylor was last year, I'm going to put both of these games in the purple. I know they're home games. They should be in the blue, but I'm going to stick with it and put it in the purple. I think Iowa State, they were young last year, and I think they'll be much better than they were last year. West Virginia, we don't know how good this team is going to be. They just got a lot of question marks. JT Daniels transferred, so they just have a lot of question marks heading into next year. We go to the games now where Baylor's going to be an underdog in, about 20%. We're going to start with those games in the orange. And I think you got one game on that schedule. It's Kansas State on the road. Based off of where Kansas State was last year, this team, won the Big 12, and, I think, that's going to be an orange game. Baylor, based off of where they were last year as well, I think you got to put this game in the orange. So I think Kansas State should be a pretty good team this year. Not saying they're going to be really one of the best teams in the Big 12 just yet, because it's too early to tell about what these teams are going to look like and what these teams are going to look like heading into 2023. But this is just based off of where the teams were last year. I think this will be a tough road game for Baylor, though, heading into the 2023 season. We go to the games now where Baylor's going to be about a heavy underdog in. Games, where they're going to be about a touchdown of an underdog, have a pretty good chance perhaps as a heavy underdog to win. Then you got three of those on the schedule, Utah, Texas, and TCU on the road. Utah and Texas, they're both at home. I think they do have a pretty good shot to maybe pull off an upset perhaps, but as of right now, I'm going to, make them as a touchdown of an underdog. Utah and Texas, they're both pretty tough games. It's a call. I probably would have put these as a 50-50 games, but, from based off of where Utah and Texas were last year, I'm going to put both of these games in the yellow. TCU, based off of where they were last year, I'm going to say the same thing. I think, based off of where they were last year, I got to put this game in the yellow as well. So I think all three of these games in the yellow, I think Baylor will be about an underdog in all three of these games. I think they are going to be a heavy underdog, probably like a single-digit underdog, a touchdown underdog as well. I think the rest of the games here on the schedule for Baylor, UCF, Texas Tech, Cincinnati, and Houston, I think these are all games where they can go either way. 50-50 games. These are games where I think they are going to stay in the white. Games that are going to be back and forth as well. UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston, those are newcomers, and, based off of where Baylor was, like I said, from last year, I got to stick with these games and put it in the white. I think, playing on the road at UCF and Cincinnati will be tough games for Baylor. Houston is at home, but I still think that's going to be a 50-50 game. And Texas Tech, obviously a rival game. You never know what can happen, so I think these are all the 50-50 games for Baylor. Let's now get to the projected record here for this Baylor team. Again, not my official prediction. This is simply a projection based on this schedule. The games that they're favored in, and also the games that they are underdogs in, and also if you count the 50-50 games. You get an overall projected record for this Baylor team for 2023 at 6-6. So 6-6 is the overall projected record for this Baylor team. I think best case scenario for this team would be 7-5. That would be better. They went 6-7 last year. If they go 7-5, that's an improvement. Not a big improvement, but, a little bit of an improvement from last year. If they go 5-7, that's just going to be kind of disappointing for this Baylor team, and also kind of disappointing for these Baylor fans. But, Baylor was up and down last year. Maybe they turned things around a little bit. But as of right now, this is how the projection just came out. 6-6 for Baylor. Let me guys know what you think about this Baylor team down in the comments below. What do you think their worst case scenario is? What do you think their best case scenario is for 2023? And stay tuned here for more sports content on the Lucas Ross Sports Channel.